We don't kill the living. Shut up.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Back again. I'm going to go ahead and continue these throwback reviews so I can finish up having all the reviews for every episode on my channel. And the only ones I lack are the rest of season 5, the last 15 episodes of season 5. So I'm going to try to get this knocked out. So there will be a review for every episode on this channel. So, I'm OCD about being complete on everything. So that's one thing I lacked, because when I started this channel, it was already on season 6. So, like I said, I've gone back and done Throwback 1 through 4, and but I just never got around to finishing it. But I said, well, I'll stop babbling now so we can get right into this. We'll go ahead and get this going. It's gonna be for season 5, episode 2, entitled "Strangers." The episode begins with a shot of the smoke rising from Terminus. The group is on the road once again and decide to take a break. As Glenn and Maggie share a tender moment, Tara approaches Rick. "You didn't want to be there. That's why I tried to talk to you," Rick tells Tara, referring to how he called Tara out before the bloody showdown with the governor. He's thankful she saved Glenn and welcomes her into the group, and even accepts her offer of a fist bump. Carol and Tyrese are filling water bottles from a creek and talk about whether the group will accept Carol for killing Karen and David at the prison. Carol says that they don't have to accept it, but Tyrese insists that they do. Tyrese states that they don't have to tell them about Lizzie and Mika. He says he just wants to forget about what happened. The group continues on their journey and comes across a lone walker. Michonne says she got it and reaches reflexively for her katana that she lost at Terminus. Sighing, she takes it out by striking it with the butt of her gun and bashing its head in. Abraham sees this and tells Rosita, "Right there, that's why we're waiting for our moment." That night, as the group makes camp in the woods, Rick talks to Carol. "I owe you everything," he tells her. Carol responds, "You owe Tyrese. He was at the prison." Carol pulls Rick's watch out of her bag and gives it back to him. He tells Carol that he saw the Terminus residents murder Sam. He offers her watch back, but she refuses. Rick admits some regret at sending her away, to which she responds, "You said I could survive, and you were right." He notes the irony of kicking her out and then having to live with her on the road, and turns it around, asking permission for them to join her rather than giving her permission to come back to the group. "Will you have us?" he asks, and she nods yes. Later that night in the woods, Carol and Daryl are sitting together and have a chance to talk about the horrible things that have happened recently. But after a long silence, she says she doesn't want to. "I just need to forget it," she says, echoing what Tyrese said. They both hear a noise and get up to look. Daryl says it's nothing. In a different camera angle, a silhouette moves through the trees in front of Daryl and Carol. Walking in the woods again the next day, everyone hears a noise and prepares their weapons. Daryl comes out of the woods with some squirrels he caught. "We surrender," he jokingly says. Daryl mentions to Rick he didn't see any tracks of what was watching them last night. Abraham starts trying to talk to Rick about his plan, suggesting that they find a road and go north until they find a vehicle. Bob and Sasha are playing a game called Good Out of the Bad, where Sasha mentions a bad thing and Bob has to find the silver lining. For example, danger around every corner equals to never a dull moment. The two of them kiss, and Sasha explains the game to Tyrese, who is observing on happily. The group hears cries for help, and Carl convinces Rick to help. There they find a man, a preacher from his clothing, up on a rock surrounded by walkers. The group dispatches the walkers and then forms a perimeter, looking distrustfully at the still frightened man. Rick tells the man he can come down, and he does. He is clean and neatly dressed. Rick asks if he's okay, and the man throws up, apologizes, thanks the group, and introduces himself as Father Gabriel Stokes. Father Gabriel says he has no weapons, and the word of God is the only protection he needs, which gets a cynical, "sure didn't look like it" coming from Daryl. Gabriel says he called for help and that God answered with their arrival. He asks for food, and Carl offers a meager handful of pecans. Gabriel sees the baby and says that Judith is a beautiful child. When pressed by Rick, he says he has a church. Rick makes him put his hands above his head and searches him for weapons, asking him the 3 questions from the prison. How many walkers have you killed? Not any, actually, he responds. Rick continues with, how many people have you killed? None, Gabriel replies. Why? And then Gabriel says, because the Lord abhors violence. Rick presses him. What have you done? We've all done something. Gabriel responds, I'm a sinner. I sin almost every day, but those sins, I confess them to God, not strangers. As they head to Gabriel's church, Rick asks if Gabriel was the one watching them. Gabriel says he keeps to himself because people are just as dangerous as the dead. No, people are worse, Rick says. Gabriel says that the rock was the furthest he had been from the church since it all started, but then starts defiantly joking that maybe he's lying and leading them into a trap so he can steal all their squirrels. Members of my flock had often told me that my sense of humor leaves much to be desired, Gabriel says when he sees the less than friendly reaction that his joke got. The group soon arrives at the church. Rick cautiously asks to go into the church first so they can hold on to their squirrels, quote unquote. Gabriel unlocks the door and the group enter, guns drawn. Inside, Carol finds a book on a desk that shows Gabriel or someone had been copying the Bible by hand. He's written, "Thou shalt not kill" in huge letters on one page. Rick finds empty food cans around the altar. Glenn, who almost got the group hurt by releasing the crazed man previously, finds a picture with the words of Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due reason we will reap if we do not give up. Michonne takes notice of children's drawings. Rick calls for the rest of the people into the church. Abraham suggests fixing the church bus and taking it to D.C. Michonne wants to rest and gather supplies first, and Rick agrees. Abraham looks like he wants to object, but Glenn tells them that one way or another they're following Rick and not splitting up. Tara adds what he said, and even Bob piles on. Inside, Gabriel says he's been living off food from the church's annual canned food drive and scavenging. He says he's cleaned out every place nearby except for one that's overrun by about a dozen walkers. Bob and Sasha agree to go with Rick to check it out, and Tyrese agrees to babysit Judith. Rick thanks Tyrese for his help. Rick makes Gabriel go with them because he doesn't trust him. Before he leaves, Rick has a talk with Carl. Carl says he does trust Gabriel because he feels that everybody can't be bad. Rick tells Carl that Gabriel may have friends and he needs him to stay to help Tyrese protect Judith. Rick tells Carl that no matter what, he's not safe and makes him a promise to never let his guard down. Before he leaves, though, Carl calls Rick back. He tells him that they are strong enough that they can still help people and that they don't have to be afraid or to hide. However, Rick still believes that Gabriel is hiding something. On the way to scavenge the food bank are Rick, Gabriel, Bob, Sasha, and Michonne. Bob is trying to talk Rick into going to Washington. He notes a double meaning of Rick's words that the termites don't get to live, pointing out that when you push yourself too far, there are things that you can't get back. Although Rick is not even sure he's going to, Bob is convinced that Eugene can cure the virus and that things will go back to something like they were. And if you let too much go along the way, that's not going to work, Bob says. Rick says, this is the real world, Bob. He said, nah, this is a nightmare. A nightmare's end. But he also admits his optimism is maybe just one of those parts of not letting go. Carol and Daryl are walking down the road with 4 jugs of water they've collected. Carol is reluctant to talk about what happened when she was separated from the group. Daryl says that they can start over and that Carol saved them, but she says they got lucky. They come across an abandoned car, and Carol decides to check it out. The car's battery appears to be dead, but Daryl interrupts her, and as she's checking the trunk, we ain't dead. And whatever happened, let's start over. Carol says she wants to, and Daryl says she can, though she doesn't look convinced. Inside the trunk, Carol finds an emergency starter. She pushes the button on it and shows that it's got battery life, a little bit of battery life left. So she says that they should leave the car for backup in case things go bad at the church. Daryl offers to carry some of the water for Carol, but she playfully refuses his offer. Maggie and Tara are on a separate mission to loot a gun store. The door is kicked in and they both agree the chances of leftovers are super slim. There's a noise from inside that they draw their guns. Glenn comes out and admits he tripped over a stack of boxes and a mop, and that he found 3 silencers stashed in a mini fridge inside. There's nothing left in this world that isn't hidden, he says. Words which stick to Tara. Rick's group arrives at what Gabriel says was the food bank that served the whole county. They draw their weapons and go inside cautiously. There's a huge hole in the floor. It leads to the basement filled with water and stinky, decayed walkers. If a sewer could puke, this is what it would smell like, Bob says. Sasha suggests using some metal shelves in the muck to block the walkers. Rick agrees it's a good plan. They climb down the shelves, and Rick forces a terrified Gabriel to go with them. Inside, the water is up to their waist. Gabriel sees a walker that looks like a church lady with big glasses and panics. He tries to get up the stairs, but they break. The others push down the shelves and fight their way through the walkers to save Gabriel. Rick catches up to the church lady and busts her rotten head open before she can get Gabriel. Bob walks over to get some supplies, confidently says, I know which way it's going to break. After he's pulling a box of supplies, a walker pulls him down into the water. Bob comes back up fighting a walker. It looks like he has rotted away to nothing. Bob impales it on a pipe, and Sasha smashes its head open with a storage container. She goes to Bob and asks him if he's okay, and he says that he's fine, though apparently shaken. The group loads up huge carts with lots of food and are leaving. Gabriel apologizes for panicking. Rick asks if he knew the church lady, Walker, when she was still alive, and Gabriel won't answer. Yeah, I get it. You only tell your sins to God, Rick says sarcastically. On the way, Rick asks Michonne if she misses her katana. She says it really wasn't hers anyway. She found it at the beginning of the outbreak. She says she got so good by killing all day, but it wasn't life for her. Stumbling around in 3 feet of slime for some peas and carrots, that's living, she says. Michonne says she misses Andrea and Herschel, but she doesn't miss what was before that. She doesn't miss her katana. Back at the church, Carl shows up. Carl shows Rick some deep scratches around a window, showing that people had tried to get into the church. He also found that someone scratched the words, "You'll burn for this," in the outer wall of the church. Doesn't mean Gabriel's a bad guy for sure, but it means something, Carl says. At night, the group have a cheerful celebration. Abraham proposes a toast. He says that each and every one of the group has earned the title of survivor and toast. To the survivors, everyone toasts back. But he continues, "Is that what you all want to be?" And makes his pitch again about Washington. He says just surviving is just surrendering. Carol considers making a run out the door to the car that she had found at this moment. Abraham says Eugene will make the dead die and the living will have this world again, and that's not a bad takeaway for the little road trip. Eugene says there's infrastructure constructed to withstand pandemics even of this food bar magnitude, which means food, fuel, and refuge, and to end the Walker plague. Looking at Judith, Abraham asked them to save the world for the little ones and for themselves, or for the people out there. Rick hears Judith coo and jokes. She's in. If she's in, I'm in. We're in. Let's do it. And everyone cheers. Bob asks Sasha for one more kiss. Then he gets up and leaves, clearly consumed in thought. Tara takes this time to tell Maggie that she was in the prison with the governor. She said she didn't know who he was or what he could do. Maggie forgives her as well, saying, You're here with us now, and offering a hug. Rick thanks Gabriel for the hospitality and letting them drink the communion wine. Gabriel is drinking it too. He says it's just wine until it's blessed anyway, and there's no one left to take communion. Rick tells Gabriel he knows he's hiding something. He says, these people are my family, and if what you're hiding somehow hurts them in any way, I'll kill you, Rick tells him. Carol has made a run for the abandoned car. She gets it started, but the engine noise draws a walker, which she stabs. Daryl comes out of the woods and asks her what she's doing. Carol, slightly confused, states that she doesn't know. He tries to lead her back to the church, and it looks like she's going to go, but just at that moment they hear a car speeding past. Daryl runs towards the road as it passes to investigate and notices the black car with a distinctive white cross in the back, similar to the one that took Beth. They got Beth, Daryl says, as he hastily breaks the lights out of the car. They both pile in the car and give pursuit. Bob's outside smiling, a happy smile that fades as he looks at the church. He then wanders off into the woods and leans against a tree and cries. A hooded figure in a robe then knocks him out from behind. a symbol that looks like a horizontal line with a small vertical line descending from its right edge, possibly related to the marks that Morgan saw as seen on the tree. Bob awakes and sees a blurry face and a fire. They are the remaining residents of Terminus. One of them is Martin, beaten up, but not dead as Tyrese had claimed. The good news is you're not dead yet, Gareth says. They have Bob tied to a pole. Gareth says that he didn't want to hurt them before, but these things are things they have to do. You and your people took away our home, and in order for us to survive, we have to hunt. During a montage of the group celebrating and eating, Gareth gives a speech about how the termites didn't start out eating people or doing the other things they've done. One shot shows Gabriel looking at a picture of the church lady who was the church organist with him while she was alive. We evolved, we had to, and now we've devolved into hunters, Gareth says. I told you, I said it, can't go back, Bob. He says, just hopes Bob understands it's not personal, that even though they put them in the situation, they would have done this to anybody. Gareth says that at the end of the day, no matter how much they hate all this ugly business, a man's got to eat. Bob is shown missing his left leg, amputated about the knee. He begins panicking out of shock. Gareth takes a bite of Bob's cooked leg right in front of him. If it makes you feel any better, you taste much better than we thought you would, Gareth says. The termites feast on Bob's legs, now roasting on a fire pit, as we fade to black into episode. All right, guys, that was the quick little rundown / review of episode 502 entitled Strangers. Thanks as always for checking this out, and I will see you guys in the next review. Y'all be good.
Pushing our pants yet?